Just when you thought Donald Trump's day couldn't get any worse, the United States Supreme Court is now poised to overturn Donald Trump's tariffs, literally ripping apart Donald Trump's attorneys, the Solicitor General, during oral argument today. Almost all of the conservative justices seem skeptical of Trump's arguments that he could declare this national emergency and impose tariffs across the board on countries across the world. In the days leading up to today's oral argument, Donald Trump has been going off on Truth Social, talking about how important today's oral argument is, how this case is the most important case in our nation's history. Because when you think about it, for him, tariffs are his economic policy. That is the central tenet of Donald Trump's economic agenda. And if the Supreme Court overturns Donald Trump's ability to impose tariffs via this national emergency declaration, well, then Donald Trump's economic policy is essentially nil, essentially nothing. And today, during oral argument, it really seemed as though the United States Supreme Court is now poised to overturn these tariffs. I want to run through some reactions I had while listening to oral arguments. So, out from the beginning, Justice Roberts and Justice Barrett both seemed skeptical of the arguments put forth by the Solicitor General. Immediately, Roberts asked, who pays the tariffs? If a tariff is imposed on automobiles, who pays them? Neil Gorsuch, Donald Trump's appointee, then suggested that his tariffs could essentially lead the president to ignore Congress on anything. That the way Donald Trump has imposed these tariffs could essentially allow him free reign to do whatever he wants, ignoring Congress in the process. He goes on to say that whoever powers or whatever powers Congress delegates to the president, no president will want to give it back. Congress can't take that back without a supermajority, he said. What president is going to give that power back? A pretty rare president at that. He then went in on Trump's Solicitor General, saying Congress, as a practical matter, can't get this power back once it's handed over. The president is a one-way ratchet to the gradual but continual exertion of power in the executive branch and away from the people's elected representatives. Then Justice Kavanaugh, another Trump appointee, went in on the Solicitor General too, saying, how come no other president in American history before Donald Trump invoked the IIEPA, which is the emergency kind of act to impose these tariffs? Then Justice Barrett pressed Trump's lawyers, saying essentially, I mean, Spain, France, I could see it with some countries, but referring to reciprocal tariffs, Donald Trump's defense that he was talking about these reciprocal tariffs. Gorsuch went on to say, question, could the president impose a 50% tariff on gas-powered cars and auto parts to deal with the unusual and extraordinary threat from abroad of climate change? Sauer then, the Solicitor General, said that the administration said it would be a hoax. Gorsuch said, quote, I'm sure you would say that. Among the six conservatives, Gorsuch, Barrett, and Roberts have all expressed deep skepticism about the Trump administration's argument. Now, Justices Thomas, Alito, and Kavanaugh all found some merit in it, but even they had some questions over whether or not these arguments merit or hold water. And it's pretty stunning to see that Donald Trump's own justices on the court, the ones he appointed, are the ones that may do him in here. Because ultimately, here's the thing. Donald Trump thought that he could just impose tariffs on whatever he wants, whoever he wants, whenever he wants by declaring this national emergency. But that's not how it actually works. And while Neil Katyal, the attorney on the other side, got up, and yeah, he was grilled too by some of these lawyers. He was grilled too by some of the justices. And that's not surprising. Should not surprise anyone that he also was getting grilled, because both sides are going to get grilled in front of the United States Supreme Court. But I do want to talk about the tariffs broadly. Over the past 2 weeks, Donald Trump was rebuked by the United States Senate, specifically Republicans in the Senate, over these tariffs. The elected representatives of the American people said, we don't want tariffs. If you recall, they voted 5 Republicans, Tom Tillis, Mitch McConnell, Rand Paul, Lisa Murkowski, and Susan Collins, joined all Democrats to overturn Donald Trump's tariffs on Brazil, the 50% tariffs. Then the next day, 4 of those 5 Republicans joined all Democrats to overturn Donald Trump's 25% tariffs on Canada. And then the next day, those same 4 Republicans joined all Democrats to overturn Donald Trump's tariffs on all other countries under this national emergency declaration, under the IIEPA. Here's the thing. the president of the United States has never done this before. This tariffs policy that Donald Trump has imposed is very new. It's very new. It's not something that's done before. And I think that's where a lot of these justices are having some skepticism and having some concern because they're like, well, why is Donald Trump the first president to do this? I mean, yes, he has set precedent in a number of ways, but why now? And why can't he do this through Congress? Why can't Congress pass the tariffs? Because I think here's the thing. Ultimately, what this Supreme Court cares about, really, truly, even the conservatives, and this is something that I studied in law school, they really do care about the co-equal branches of government and keeping the legislative branch separate from the judicial branch, separate from the executive branch, right? The legislative branch's functions are to pass law. The executive branch is to enforce law. The judiciary is to interpret law. That's kind of the three branches of government. The executive branch is not responsible for passing law, and it's not responsible for deciding whether or not to tariff a country. That is something that Congress typically has to do. Congress has to approve tariffs on countries. That is economic policy, that is law. And well, here Donald Trump tried to do a workaround by declaring this emergency under this rarely used, if ever, statute in an effort to try to avoid going to Congress to get the tariffs. And well, now the judiciary is saying, hold up, the president is exercising power that is simply outside of his control as president of the United States. This is power that was relegated to Congress, not to the executive. It's simple civics. You have three co-equal branches of government, and Donald Trump as president of the United States can't do the job of senators or House members because that's not the body he's a member of. Just like Justice Gorsuch tomorrow can't decide to declare a national emergency and impose tariffs on a country. That's not Justice Gorsuch's purview as a judge. That's not the judiciary's branch. That's not the judiciary's responsibility. And so, while we don't know ultimately what the Supreme Court will decide, if I had to predict right now, we may even have a 6-3, 7-2 majority with some conservative justices joining the liberals to overturn these tariffs. Now, timing wise, it's anyone's guess when we're going to get a decision. We can get a decision as soon as the end of the month, as soon as the end of the year, or at the latest by the end of June of 2026. If I had to predict, as far as timing wise here, because this was briefed so quickly, because this was kind of on this like emergency hotshot docket, we may actually get a ruling on the tariffs by the end of the year. That's what I would predict. But ultimately, it's anyone's guess what the Supreme Court will decide and when the Supreme Court will decide. Only the Supreme Court has the power to make that decision because, like I said at the beginning, three co-equal branches of government, the Supreme Court is independent of the executive and of the legislative branch. So we'll see what happens. But right now, Donald Trump's day, which started out bad because he lost significantly across the country in elections, is now going worse as the Supreme Court is poised to overturn his tariffs. I will continue to provide you updates throughout the day and into the night. Like, comment, share, and subscribe to support my work, and I'll see you soon for